Hello, Ezekiel Dasho, continuing on in my series of shiny objects, and today I'm going to draw this cup full of tea. Let's start with these circles here. And I'm looking at a shape that's pretty close to circular, but has a little bit of elongation to it. And so this will define the upper lip of the cup. From there on out, I'm going to start by dropping down the lines that represent the curve of the cup. And this top view doesn't really let us see the bottom, so that's fine. You can see I'm just very lightly adding those brush strokes almost with the pencil. Okay, at the top we see this line that's nearly parallel with the top edge of the cup. And similarly, just going to keep on going with this light, almost paintbrush style stroke. Here we see a couple areas that are shinier. We'll go ahead and define those in and make sure we don't draw over them later. This kind of diamond shape here. And then let's go ahead and add the handle. Sort of top edge of the handle starts kind of the point of that diamond points to. And then a little bit rounded, but a kind of perpendicular shape to the first line we made. And then there's an arc. It kind of starts, if you see where the T curves around here, this arc kind of goes like that. And then drops down. It's almost this like leaf shape. And there's a little bit of daylight in there. And so we basically have the cup built, and now it's time to get to the fun part and shade it in. So there are all sorts of different levels of shading on this object, and it's one of the reasons that I chose white, is it would afford us all these opportunities to study the various levels and value in the object there. So there's some detailing on the handle of the mug. There's a little bit of like beveled edge kind of. And so the shadow is sort of darker in those spots, and the line is more abrupt. Okay, let's get the rim of the mug. Start to get that drawn in and defined. The inner part of the cup is much darker than the rim or the outer. And then closer to the water level, there's almost this light there's light reflecting from the surface of the tea and almost illuminating the edge of the line that the tea makes. So if you look closely where the tea hits the cup, there's this area that's a little bit lighter, and it's very, very slender. It's very, very thin. But if I can retain that lightness there, that sort of low light backlighting, it'll go a long way to help the drawing create the feel of a real object. And paying special attention to how the light bounces around on the surface of an object can really help solidify it in the mind of the viewer, even though they're looking at something that looks like it's been sketched and shaded. If they catch those highlights in there, they might not really notice them, but they're gonna respond, and their brain's gonna think, that's real. Their eyes are gonna send them the signals that's an object occupying a physical space. So, and plus, one of the most fun parts about shading is studying how, just like looking as closely as you can at how the light is actually, how it actually is. Because sometimes we think we know how it is, but when we look closer, we realize that, hey, I just learned something. The light's doing something I didn't know that it was doing. Or, in my drawings, I tend to just always draw a certain thing a certain way, because that's the habit I've gotten into to producing an object or whatever. But with life drawing, it gives us an opportunity to really look at how things are for real and come into closer harmony with reality. And it's at that point when you learn something about how light bounces off an object and how to represent that in your own drawing, that you'll really start to flower as an artist, and that the point where learning happens. I mean, everybody pretty much starts off by drawing stick figures and whatnot. It's just a matter of learning how to see and how to triangulate. Anyone can draw. It's just something that you can teach people to do, or that you can learn. And nobody's bad at drawing. If somebody doesn't know, it's just because they were never shown how to triangulate things, or how to hold a pencil properly, or how anyone can draw. And never too late to pick up a pencil and get some paper and start. It's one of the most, I think, intellectually rewarding pursuits. And one of the best parts is when you're done, you have a physical object to show for it. A lot of things don't have that benefit. let's see, I'm kind of seeing a little bit of a darker shadow. It's very faint coming down here, sort of like a shadow from the wall of the cup, I guess. And then at the bottom, there's this kind of circle, which would be, I guess, the right about here, which would be the floor of the cup or the bottom of the cup. But that's not really coming through so much. And what's coming through more, I think, from where I'm looking is the surface of the tea. And so I'm going to go ahead and kind of get that surface area colored in a little bit, and at the end maybe do a little extra shading on the part that is darker, but just for now I've got that spot kind of referenced here, and this part will always just stay a hair darker than the part next to it, and that'll give the very subtle impression that the, that the water is, or that the tea is a little bit translucent. And it's definitely not opaque, but it is red, and red when translated into black and white just dominates. It's much darker than the other. I mean, it can even compete with like a dark blue or a purple or something sometimes. It's amazing. So let's emphasize the darkness right there. And right here. And then you can see on the lip of the teacup there, there's a slender line where the shadow starts to come in. And then here and there on the rim, there are areas where it's not quite as bright, but it is pretty bright. So now I'm going to go through here with some circles and just let the reflective part of the rim pop out a little bit more. This part of the surface area is also pretty dark, I think mainly because of the contrast to the tea. These exercises, as stuff like drawing a cup and stuff like that, have been for me so useful and so helpful in terms of stepping up my game when I go to draw other things. My eyes have just improved. Like portrait drawing has just improved, and everything is improved because of things like this, where you look and learn to see what you're, not only see what you're seeing and put it on the page, but also just to practice like shading and to understand like the kind of paper you're working with, and understanding your pencil and so forth. And there's a little bit of a shadow here from the, and then that's definitely darker. So yeah, we're at this phase where it's just identifying the areas that need more shading and making that happen. And I don't want to draw any hard lines or anything like that, but it is getting to that point where let's draw in the shadows and see how it's looking, and we can sharpen it up a little bit more in the next few minutes. And top, this does look a little bit darker. And the shadows that we're looking at here. Just lightly. The main thing is getting the general shape pretty much accurate, and then get the tones in there. And also this shadow over here. And there's this sort of shadow from the handle, it looks like. A lot of different light sources in the room, so getting a lot of different shadows. Okay. Use this area of the cup to grab a little extra shadow and help it look like it's standing on a surface there. And then this shadow here looks to be the darkest of the bunch. Okay. For these parts, I am doing my best to do a nice broad, even stroke. Something, it just comes with practice and working on your hand control and finding these areas where the grain of the paper hasn't really let the graphite settle in, and in those places using a small circular motion so that you can get those filled in without pressing down hard. See if I can manage to leave the reflection there a little bit. See here, there's a little bit of backlighting, so maybe accentuating the shadow just a little more, a hair's breadth out from the cup, And then this area here, there's a little bit of backlighting too, so I want to try to preserve that. Same with this area on the side of the cup. Here we've got this little bit of shadow almost. Okay, so let's get ready to finish this one up here, and here maybe give a little shading to the rim to help with the roundness. And like right here, it's not just flat white all the way across, it's a little bit brighter in certain parts of the rim. We'll hit these shadows again quick. Maybe define this shiny spot a little bit more. So at this point, just for the sake of those of you who are still with me, my pencil is very, I'm using the shaded edge as much as I can, and then there are certain points where I want a little extra punch, and I can just rotate the pencil a little bit and start using the edge that's sharper. But that sharp edge at this point, after all that shading, it's just like, man, it's like a blade. It will just slice. The point is extremely sharp as well. So you've got options in terms of sharpness. You've got your slicing, you could almost draw a hair or an eyelash with that. Well, you could draw a hair or an eyelash with it very easily. You could almost slice the paper with it. And then the point, which is just so sharp, I mean, it's sharper than a needle point. So I'm trying as best as I can to kind of stay away from the sharp edges, and just being aware that they're there. And so if I turn my pencil inadvertently in my hand and I use the wrong part of my hand, I might get a mark on my drawing that I didn't necessarily intend. So I want to make sure that I'm just mindful of the way that the lead or the graphite changes over the course of the drawing. And maybe punch it even up a little more here. But the soft flat edge is so soft and so almost wide that it'll help you shade and cover areas that you want uniform and even. So right now I'm going to go ahead and rotate a pencil, use the sharp edge, and get that that sharpness there, just for the sake of that shadow. And then back to the flat edge here. And that lets me sort of evenly distribute the tones quickly. All right, so pretty happy with that. You know, if you wanted to, you could go in and get an eraser and clean up any extraneous lines. You know, if you were drawing this for someone or something or some reason further than just practice and stuff. If you wanted to have it be presented, but I think it looks nice with the extra floaty lines around. Just makes it look more like a drawing. And here we get down to the details. Okay, so thanks for being with me for this video, and I hope to see you again real soon. And have a great day and do some drawing. All right, peace.